I love cooking, but there are some days when I feel too exhausted to cook. But I also don't want to spend money on takeout, or I have ingredients in my fridge that I need to use up. On days like these, this is how I cook a delicious meal with very little effort. I'm Kirsten, and I spend my days processing grief and healing while staying kind, cozy, and courageous. And this is how to cook when you have zero energy. To be honest, I recorded this video a year ago when I was pregnant in my third trimester, but I wasn't ready to upload it at the time. You see, before my mom died, we had this plan to start teaching what we called chronic pain cooking. From 2020 to 2022, my mom and I ran a bakery while living with chronic pain, and we knew what it felt like to cook and bake while exhausted and in pain. And we wanted to share the lessons we'd learned over the years about how to conserve energy, make use of equipment, and ask for support in the kitchen. And that's exactly what this video ended up being about. It reminded me so much of the plans my mom and I had, the ones that could no longer be actualized. And I needed some time to sit with it. But now I'm ready to share this video. I hope it gives you some insight into the ways you can honor your body while cooking in the kitchen. Sometimes when our bodies are exhausted, the answer is not to push ourselves even harder. The answer is to rest. And today, I'm going to walk you through the process of how I incorporate rest into my cooking. It starts with deciding what I want to cook. How can I make something that takes me under 30 minutes of work, including prep and cleanup? How can I make something that doesn't require a lot of heavy lifting, like chopping? How can I use flavor boosters in my cooking so I don't have to spend as much time and energy building flavors? I've had these lasagna noodles since forever, but I've never used them because making lasagna is so expensive and time consuming. But I decided to experiment with them today and make some lasagna soup. I'm telling you now, this is by no means a traditional or authentic way of making lasagna. This is more like I'm craving lasagna and I'm going to create something that vaguely resembles it so I can satisfy my cravings without taking up way too much of my time and energy. Alongside the lasagna noodles, I'm using canned tomatoes. I usually love using whole canned tomatoes, but I have no energy to break the tomatoes apart, so crushed will have to do for today. I've also got some minced beef. I've got celery, onion, and garlic as our flavor base. I'm adding spinach since the ricotta filling in lasagnas often have spinach. Some flavor boosters are a chili from my freezer, some vegetable bouillon to help enhance the savoriness of the soup, salt and pepper, fennel because I have no basil, parsley, or thyme, lol, bay leaves, Korean gochugaru because I have no crushed red pepper flakes, and balsamic vinegar because it helps enhance the flavor of tomatoes. And of course, cheese. I just had cheddar, but you can use ricotta or cottage cheese or parmesan. I think sometimes we can spend a lot of energy stressing over not having the right ingredient for a recipe, but sometimes in a pinch, you just gotta use whatever you have and trust the process. And who knows, you might absolutely love it. I usually never prep before I start cooking. I sort of prep as I go to save time. But today I'm going to prep my mise en place because my pregnant legs are very swollen and I don't want to be constantly switching from the counter to the stove while cooking. We're going to be prepping celery, onion, and garlic. I usually don't bother chopping when I'm exhausted, but for this meal, it's important because we're not going to have the creaminess that a bechamel brings to a lasagna in this soup. The base flavors are going to do a lot of the heavy lifting. I still kept it pretty simple, just 3 veggies to chop. I always prep my garlic last because the moment you crush garlic, it starts to release its flavor. So I want to make sure we get that in the pot ASAP. Also, I haven't chopped garlic in so long because of this handy dandy garlic press, giving me back years of my life. Would highly recommend not chopping garlic unless you're like a chef. I'm going to be cooking in an instant pot today, very hands off. Love to cook in here when I have very little energy, but you can also cook this on the stove if you don't have an instant pot. The prep will be the same, it might just take longer to cook. I also really want to sit while cooking today, so I plugged my instant pot on my dining table instead of my kitchen counter. Before I put the pot on, I also like to position my ingredients in the order that I need them so that I don't have to think too much about what goes in the pot when. I turned the saute setting on my instant pot and started by browning my mince. I like to chuck my mince into the pot and just leave it there for a few minutes until it develops a nice color, and only then do I go in to break the mince apart. And by me, I definitely mean my partner. When I'm tired, I usually ask my partner to step in to do things that I don't have the energy for. While he's breaking down the mince, I season with salt and pepper. Once the mince is browned, I add in the aromatics, so that would be the onion and garlic and then the celery. I let these brown and then add in some balsamic vinegar to deglaze the pan. Browning is a great way to develop flavor as you cook. Then I add in the can of tomatoes, bay leaves, fennel, chili, spinach, and a teaspoon of the bouillon with water. And then I break my lasagna noodles and chuck them into the soup. It's important to submerge the lasagna noodles in the soup before adding more to make sure the noodles don't all just stick together at the top. You can add more water if you feel like the noodles don't have enough room to cook. And that's it! Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I seal my instant pot and set it to cook on high for 6 minutes. While waiting for the soup, I tidy up, and then I planned on grating my cheese to top off the soup, but I got really tired, so in came my partner, our resident cheese grater. So much of living with chronic pain is knowing when to ask for help. While my soup finished up, I went to lay down on the bed and raise my swollen feet. And then the soup was ready. I vented the instant pot and stirred the soup. And tasted to see if it needed more salt. It did not. And then I plated and topped it off with some cheese. This lasagna soup was absolutely delicious. It had a lot of important elements that reminded me of a lasagna, so definitely satisfied my cravings. It was so flavorful and so comforting. And even though I spent the last half an hour cooking, I was actually feeling so energized because I had just made myself a whole ass meal despite having zero energy. I was really proud of myself. This recipe is definitely going to be on my chronic pain cooking rotation. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey as I experiment with lasagna soup and walk you through the ways I cook when I have no energy to cook. I hope you're leaving with some tips and tricks on how you can cook the next time you're exhausted. I think I'm actually going to be making this a series, so stay tuned for the next video. I'm adding some other easy meals that I made in under 30 minutes on the screen in case you want to check those out as well. See you in the next video. Bye!